to Global Business America, where we take you further. And now we turn to Brazil, which is in fact the world's largest sugar producer. But with sugar prices at record lows, many companies there are now reducing production, and they're looking to turn their surplus sugarcane into a more profitable option. Well, CCTV's Paulo Cabral is live in Sao Paulo to explain. Paulo, what's going on?
Well, Michelle, you know, Brazil for the last decade or so, for over a decade, made a lot of money exporting its commodities. Prices were high for all of them, iron ore, soybeans, and sugar, of course. But then over the last few years, those prices have been dropping steadily for a number of reasons. There was the world crisis from 2008 on, and then also there was surplus production because of the high prices of the period before. You know, those kinds of imbalances the market creates. And sugar was among this most worst hit commodities, prices at a 6-year low. So emerging developing countries that produce sugar are having to adapt to this new reality.
Brazil is the largest producer and exporter of sugar in the world, but production here has not been so sweet in 2015. The harvest has hit record 6-year lows. A weaker Brazilian currency, the real, has led to a global glut of the commodity. Brazilian companies are responding to the decline in sugar prices by converting more of the sugarcane into ethanol rather than the sweetener, a hedge against the volatile energy market.
Here in Brazil, sugarcane has a number of uses. In addition to sweet desserts, the country has become the world leader in ethanol production by converting it into a clean, low-carbon biofuel. Almost half of Brazilian cars' fuel needs are now met with sugarcane ethanol.
The biofuel demand comes at a time when gasoline prices are rising. The biofuel industry is also getting a boost from the Brazilian government, which is introducing legislation to support sales. The majority of cars sold in Brazil run either on gasoline or ethanol.
There is untapped potential to produce much more ethanol in Brazil than we do right now. The industry is using more of its sugarcane to produce fuel as it's more profitable. Down the road, in 2017, if there is a cut in production in India or Thailand causing a deficit, Brazilian producers can cover it.
Sugar production in 2015 around the world is expected to exceed demand for a 5th straight year. In fact, the International Sugar Organization has raised its global surplus estimates from 620,000 tons to more than 2.2 million tons. Sugar production has grown by an estimated 1.5 million tons.
The 2015-2016 season is just beginning, so data is preliminary. But for the first time in many years, we see the possibility of a reduction in the sugar surplus as demand seems to be greater than production.
The high demand for ethanol in Brazil may well be one way to help rebalance the world stock supplies of sugar. But analysts say it may be a slow road, and they don't expect any significant shift until at least the end of next year.
So actually, Brazilian sugar and ethanol producers have two things going for them. The devaluation of the Brazilian currency has increased their exports revenue, and also the fact that they can switch between sugar and ethanol in their plants. But that does not mean that they're having an easy ride, because most of these companies actually are heavily indebted, and also they operate with very narrow profit margins. They have serious productivity problems. And of course, Brazil's severe slowdown in this country's economy is making matters even worse for these companies.
And Paulo, what are the economic prospects for this year and the next, given the slowdown in GDP?
Well, not good at all. You know, as you say, things are already quite slow here in Brazil, and the government austerity and anti-inflation measures are just likely to make things even worse. The recent survey made by the central bank with financial market shows that the average in the market predicts a drop of more than 2% in Brazil's GDP for this year, and 0.15% for next year. So yeah, not good prospects at all, at least until the end of 2016. Brazil's economy is likely to be moving very slowly.
You know, Paulo, as we're speaking, we're seeing footage of President Dilma Rousseff. Obviously, the economy and all the political volatility must be impacting her. How popular is the president these days, huh?
Oh, yeah, yes, it has been impacting a lot. You know, actually, in recent surveys, 71% of people say they disapprove the government of Dilma Rousseff. It's the lowest approval rate for a government in more than 20 years in Brazil. And this is as much an economic as a political crisis. You know, there are opposition leaders calling for her to resign, others demanding an impeachment process to be started because of all the corruption allegations involving Brazil's Petrobras. And then you just get into that vicious circle, you know, because the economy is weak, President Dilma Rousseff is not strong enough to try and react to these attacks on her from the side of the opposition. So yes, Brazil is deep in both economic and political crisis right now.
And in the midst of all of this, the economy, the political instability, we've got German Chancellor Angela Merkel visiting Brazil tomorrow. What are the expectations from this visit?
Well, look, certainly President Dilma Rousseff welcomes this visit because it will help to take a bit the focus out of all the corruption allegations and the political crisis and protests against the government that have been dominating the media over these last few weeks. You know, certainly this will be on all newspapers and portals, internet portals and TVs in Brazil, but at least they will be able to split some of the space to show President Rousseff under a better light as a head of state, welcoming a foreign chief of state also here to Brazil, or chief of government from Germany here in Brazil. They are expected to sign some some important deals and agreements in the field of environment and climate protection. But there is not, you know, Chancellor Merkel is not coming with business people. It's more of a government deal here, consultations between two governments.
Well, I'm sure Rousseff will welcome the change in publicity. Thank you so much. Good to see you as always, Paulo Cabral, live for us in Sao Paulo.